For whatever reason, the haters are hitching their wagons to the idea that Bryce Underwood is somehow already, without having played a college football game, a bust. Yet there's some material out there that suggests that the haters are going to be very upset. We're going to talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And we appreciate every one of you everydayers who check out the show every single day. And thank you for making us your first listen. At the outset, we're going to talk about some new, I don't want to say intel, but a new revelation. I don't even want to call it that. A new article on Bryce Underwood, as well as just some weird social media narratives that are going around that will tell you a little bit about the unhinged nature of some of Michigan's rivals out there. Then for the next two segments after that, we'll split it up by offense and defense. We are going to go through my brand new best guest list, the predicting Michigan's 2026 class now that they are almost done with the official recruiting weekends. I think I feel pretty good about it, even though I know come signing day I will not. So we will get to that later. But let's start off with this CBS article, and it didn't pull up as I told it to. Okay, there we go. So CBS is actually 24/7 Sports. Matt Zenitz, who's part of the CBS network, ended up writing for CBS. That he spoke to a source that has some really amazing things to say about Bryce Underwood. Does not indicate whether or not this source is internal, if it's someone that's just around the program, if it's someone, it has to be someone around. But there's several quotes here, and I want to read them to you, and then we'll get to more of it here. He says, he's a unique and rare guy. And then Zenit, that's the source. And Zenit says, it's been a combination of Underwood's physical ability to go along with the advanced maturity, work ethic, and leadership skills for someone his age. It says one source. So earlier it says a source, and this one says one source. So it indicates that there's multiple sources here that are speaking about Bryce. It says, he's been amazing, awesome human being, puts in a ton of work, already commands a room, even with as young as he is, has a goal to learn everybody's name in the building, and gives the janitors the same respect that he gives the head coach. As a leader, he just gets it. Now there's one more quote here, and then we'll start talking about it. Said, he reads the field really well. He gets the ball out, has a quick release, and can deliver the ball on all three levels, a source said. That was the stuff quarterbacks struggled with last year, so to see him doing that stuff is very encouraging. I think that is extremely encouraging, that Bryce is seemingly already, like, he's got the maturity, he's got the physical ability, he's got the accuracy. One of the things that it mentioned that I didn't read here was quarterbacks were going through these certain drills where they're throwing downfield and they're trying to hit a target. And it's with 5 times, you'd have guys that were 2 of 5, 3 of 5. Underwood was 5 of 5. So I think all of those things combined indicate some really good things for Mr. Bryce Underwood as it pertains to his upcoming tenure here in Ann Arbor. I think it's a little... I want to weirdly take a quick step back, kind of back to where we were maybe about February, just because I was sitting there thinking about it, and it's like, I do think he is ahead of the ball game. He's ahead of the curve. He's that type of dude, right? Like talking to people, they're like, yeah, I mean, he was always going to be the guy that's probably going to start week 1. He's just too talented. Because, right, remember, we were on the Mikey Keene train until we found out he got injured. In terms of, not that he's going to be the full-time starter, but he would get the start out of the gates, and it would look like Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence. But I do want to caution somewhat, because he is still a true freshman. Now, some of that I feel is mitigated about going up against the defenses he's going up against in practice. Now, practice and games are different, right? But I think it helps. It's not like he's going up against, like, man, their defense. It's not like, I'm just going to give a random slight here. It's not like he's going up against the 2021 Michigan State secondary here, okay? Now, what's Michigan's secondary, I'm not really sure, but I project this is going to be a top 5 defense, maybe better. So with that in mind, it's like, okay, you feel like he's getting some good practice reps. By the time that he gets to game one, he'll have had 10 practices in bowl prep ish. Maybe it's like 7 or 8, 15 in spring ball, 15 in fall camp. So he'll have like 37 to 40 ish practices under his belt. Whereas when you look at a lot of other quarterbacks that when they arrive on campus, if they aren't an early enrollee, or like a transfer that comes in that does that, or someone like Mikey Keene, right? Like Mikey Keene might have 15 total practices with Michigan. Now he's much more well-versed. But nonetheless, I think that tells you a lot about like how prepared he will be. You mix that with the work ethic. He's not, even though he's going places, right? He was in LA for the EA Sports cover shoot, and he made the most of that. He's been to Hawaii. He was at Disney recently. I saw in his Facebook or Instagram story rather. So, I mean, he's making rounds, but like when you hear everyone talk, they're talking about the work ethic. They're talking about like the wanting to break down things and just how there's was a report on Maize and Blue Review about how he's getting in work with each individual receiver from Michigan. That type of thing is really going to bode well for him. Now, where I want to get to the rival piece, because I think it's kind of hilarious, is that you see a lot of different things on, like, I just really loathe going on X at this point. Hate it. It's no kinds of fun, but you have to be on it if you're in my shoes, because that's where a lot of the news breaks when it comes to football stuff. But you sit there and you look around and you see, like, the article on that we were just referencing on Bryce. You see some of the comments already on that rivals trying to make it sound like they're running with the narrative. And yeah, it's probably just trolling, but I would venture to guess there's some that believe it, because I feel like the rival narratives have tended to be so deep seated in their heart a lot of the time. Some are probably just trolling and just trying to get people for a rise or trying to end up on this show, all that kind of stuff. But you see them like really trying to roll with that pre-spring game narrative that, oh, he's so overweight. He gained all this weight. He's 260 pounds. He added 50 bad pounds this offseason type of thing. Or there's other ones, like there was a college football nerds thread where it was like, who was a 5-star who didn't end up living up to that billing that still just kind of gets considered a 5-star. And you see people in there saying Bryce Underwood. Like the dude hasn't even played a snap, so you can't even say that. It just shows like how much Michigan is in. I'm just going to say Ohio State. Michigan State heads too, but I mean, at this point, they're meaningless at this juncture. But even though Michigan's actually beaten Ohio State more straight times than Michigan State, but nonetheless, it's just funny to see that's the type of effect Bryce has on these guys, that they can't even help themselves. They just can't like do anything other than just like rag on the currently 17-year-old kid who has not yet done anything. I understand, right? Like, is he going to be the savior type of thing? Remember the Mike Valeni ragging on JJ McCarthy type of stuff? I think that happened. I'm not 100 on that, but ragging on JJ McCarthy before, calling him a savior and everything. And then he ended up being exactly what he was, right? Like he won the national championship, 3 straight Big Ten, 3 wins over Ohio State, all that kind of stuff. So it is hilarious. So let them talk, right? Just like the same ones that are out there saying whatever they want to say about the, hearing coming out of the CIOI, hearing not, the Big Ten is big mad and they're going to come down even harder on Michigan and all that those types of narratives. Like, just let those go. Let them run with it, because it's just going to make pride comes before the fall. Not to get all Mark D'Antonio on you guys. All right, we got this best guest list. I want to go through it. The guys who I think are in, we'll kind of loosely do the confidence. It's a little bit more structured than when we kind of just threw out a bunch of names last week. But now we will actually kind of be more serious and say this is probably what it's going to be, at least if I had to pick right now. So we were going to get to the offense here in just a moment. But before we do, there's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's that kind of atmosphere that you have to experience live, having been at some of those Pistons games in the 2000s. I agree. So if you want in, guess what? Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off, and with their last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer. Listen, if you want to get down to Indianapolis, you could actually see, in this next game, you could see the Oklahoma City Thunder win it all on Thursday. That's up to you. But one of the things I love about it with the Gametime guarantee, you know that you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first order. Terms apply. Again, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, redeem that for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, I have my notes on the iPad, so I get a nice table here. We're just gonna hold that down there and see what we can see if we can manage without it. 'Cause I think I know everybody that I wrote about today. So Michigan has 10 commitments: quarterback, wide receiver, 2 tight ends, 1 offensive lineman. Let's see who else: defensive tackle, 2 edge rushers, and a long snapper. Did I cover everybody? I feel like I covered everybody just off the top of my head. So obviously, and a cornerback, Brody Jennings, if that sticks, but he's on the list at the moment. All right, so let's obviously start with quarterback. It's Brady Smigel, 4-star. He's in. Impressive video coming out of that Sean Moore retweeted. Him throwing downfield. Looks like he's got a pretty good motion. Still would like to see it slightly shortened up, but it's certainly not. And no offense to Jaden Davis, it's not nearly as elongated as Jaden Davis. I think that there's a lot to like about Brady Smigel. So he is the quarterback in the class. I don't see that changing at this juncture. Okay, so you have Smigel. Running back, I'm going to go with Savion Hyder. I gave him a 7 out of 10 confidence. I think that he is going to end up in this class. Obviously, it's big. Him coming out of this visit. Let's see what happens when he goes to Tennessee this next week. Tennessee, I feel like, is probably the primary competition for him at this point. Obviously, Ohio State and Georgia are still kind of looming around. I feel like this is one of those ones where Michigan's not going to be beat when it comes to what it puts when it's putting everything out on the line, NIL wise and whatever. He just screams Michigan kid. I think it was a good move to have him and Bryce spending a lot of time together this weekend. I think he's going to end up in the class. Wide receiver, they've got Jalen Pyle committed. I think that's solid. I went with 3 more. Travis Johnson. Now I can remember because I've spent so much time on this podcast confusing their last names. Travis Johnson, Zion Robinson are 2 that I have in. Travis Johnson just visited. Zion Robinson visited back at May 30th. Johnson's getting predicted by a bunch of the powers that be in the recruiting sites. I think that that's going to hold, and I think he's going to commit. Zion Robinson feels to me like he's going to be in the fold at some point. So I think I feel good about those. I gave, I think, like a 7 out of 10 for Travis Johnson. I think I give a 6 out of 10 to Zion Robinson. Again, these aren't crystal balls, so it isn't like confidence level in that. It's like 5 out of 10 is a coin flip, and then anything above that is like, I feel pretty good. Anything below that is like, we're less than a coin flip here. So when I say that my next one is 1 out of 10 in confidence level, it means that, if you flip the coin 10 times, 1 time he commits. But I have him in the class because I think that he could end up getting the Savion Hyder treatment once all is said and done. That's Calvin Russell, the Miami Northwestern 5-star wide receiver. I think Michigan is just enamored with him. I think they're looking at it because, like I've said, you need to get a guy now. If you want him for Bryce's junior year, you need to get that guy in this class, right? You can't sit there and say, well, we'll get him next year. Now, transfer portal can be a thing, but you have to get that guy in now. So I think he visits officially this weekend. That's huge. He was doing it week by week. Hat tip to Bryce Marich for breaking that news. So that is huge for him to get him back on campus. He visited back in March. So I think to get Calvin Russell back here in Ann Arbor, I think Michigan will shoot its shot. It's going to be a hard sell to get him outside of SEC country, but I think they'll find a way to get that done. All right. Offensive line, they've got Bear McWhorter, interior guy, committed. He's all set and done, but they need more. So I went with multiple guys. Malachi Lee, the offensive tackle from Honolulu, he's been to Ann Arbor more than anywhere else. He visits this week. He decides the next week, even though you've got a couple SEC schools that are really pining for him. I think ultimately he's going to pick Michigan. He's just been to campus so many times, and Michigan's made him such a high priority. I think he'll end up there. For my other offensive tackle, I went with Kelvin Obot. I'd love to say Felix Ojo, but I think it's going to end up being Kelvin Obot. He visits this weekend as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that Michigan's recruited the Mountain West very well. He's from Idaho, and I just feel like he's long kind of just felt like that type of guy that's resonated. And Michigan's been on him for a very long time as well. So he would be my other one. My other interior guy, I think they're doing a really good job with John Turntine. And even though people aren't really talking about that much outside of the Michigan recruiting sites, I think that it wouldn't surprise me if he was kind of the one that they really make that big the NIL, the Ty Haywood type of offer to. So John Turntine rounds out my list there. And then they've got the two tight ends already committed in Matt Ludwig and Mason Bonner. Feel like both of those are going to stick. Like what they are building on offense. Now, could they add someone else, particularly on the offensive line? I want, some of the names that I said last week, I didn't have on this list, like Zayden Krempin. And there's a couple other ones. Obviously, the Zier kid from Germany, I believe, and goes to Nikuchi School, the same school as Marlon Klein, who just visited a couple weeks ago. There's a couple other guys that could have ended up on the list. I went with these four. So I feel like that looks pretty good. Defensively, I think there are some equally interesting names that I have on here. So we are going to get to the defensive projected commitments, as well as those who are obviously already in the class, here in just a moment. I feel like it's that time of year, everything's recruiting, and I mean, I'm not mad at it. I don't know how much people do not seem to be as into recruiting as they were once upon a time. Like, I feel like 2016 through 2019, like every recruiting article was like, people ate it up. Even 2020, like I remember writing an article on Drake Bowen, the 5-star linebacker. He ended up at Notre Dame, if memory serves. I wrote that, went out and met with a friend, and it came back and had like 10,000 views. I don't know that I could get that from anyone except for maybe Savion Hyder. Like right now I've got a Savion Hyder article it's not even inside info. It's just, hey, look, there's a picture of Savion from his visit with Bryce Underwood, because that's all we're really going to get unless I talk to his agent. And I'm not really of the talk to the agent mindset. That's got 10,000 views. So I guess it depends on the player to some degree. All right, defensively, let's just start with the defensive line and let's just lump them together, even though I didn't do that in the article. Edge rusher and defensive tackle. Michigan's got 3 guys committed as of current. The edges are Tariq Boney, Mikhail Blade, who absolutely can move inside, bulk up and all of that. And then Alistair Vallejo. You got to love that trio so far, but they're not going to be done with that. So I added 2 tackles and 1 more edge, because I think that's kind of where they're going to go. I had mentioned Trenton Henderson last week. I did not put him on this list. I think that's going to be a hard pull, even though he did visit officially. Carter Meadows is the 5-star who from DC, who's visiting this weekend. I think that that's going to be one. Like I'm credit to EJ Holland, who's been all over that one. I mean, he's regionally there as well as someone based in Virginia, but he's been all over the Carter Meadows recruitment. I think that Michigan pushes and gets him in this class. And then the 2 tackles. So Meadows, I think I had out as a 6 out of 10. And then you add the 2 tackles that I added. I put Titan Davis, who I believe visits this week. who I don't feel like is getting enough pub. He's out of St. Louis. He's down to Michigan and Alabama. I think Michigan's going to win that one. And I have him, I think, at a 6 out of 10 as well. And then Ben Boulware from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He's an interesting guy, and I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about him in general. I think it's also interesting that he's from North Carolina, and to me, he looks exactly like J. Cole. Every time I see him, the first time I saw a picture of him, it was like, what's the J. Cole doing Michigan stuff? Oh, that's not. This regionally is just hilarious to me, at least. Anyway, I think he's more of a 7 out of 10. I think I had him a 6 out of 10, but I'll give him a 7. I think that Michigan did a really good job this last week from all accounts. So that's the defensive line. Linebacker is a little murky because it's kind of funny because it feels like Michigan is recruiting every linebacker in the world at this moment. Every single one, right? Like you don't really know which ones are going to end up in the fold. Not considering now, Nick Abrams is the one, and I spoke to him a couple weeks ago after his visit. He's from Maryland, 4-star. I have him in this class. I gave him a 7 out of 10. I believe confidence level. He just feels like a Michigan man. Talking to him felt the same as talking to Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. There's something about them that just you can just tell. So I'm going to keep him in this class and have him. And then after that, it's a little bit more dicey. Now, I went with Markel Dabney, the SMU commit. Again, credit to EJ Holland from On3 because he had the secret visitor and he is a 3-star who's currently committed to SMU. Sounds like Michigan really likes him. So I think they're going to get him. And then there was a bunch of other guys that I just couldn't really figure out. Is this a guy to put in this class or not? Guys like Fork Puff from IMG Academy, some others I can't really remember, but like Fork Puff would have been in my class. DQ Fork Puff would have been in my class like a couple weeks ago, but I think that I don't feel as good about that. So I went with one that I gave a 1 out of 10 confidence to, and that's Shadarius Tootle. If for no other reason than I love his name and I love when I see things from his family, from Shadrick Tootle and them. He visited a couple weeks ago. He visited the first official weekend. I know it's probably, he's an Auburn commit. He's probably going to end up at Georgia. He's another one I feel like Michigan ultimately could just be like, we want that recruiting win and we're going to NIL you right now. That's why I feel like even if he flips to Georgia, I feel like he could be one that come December we're sitting here and being like, he ended up flipping to Michigan. All right. Like, and we'll get to kind of some thoughts on that type of thing momentarily too, but I have him in the class. Safety wise, getting to the defensive backs, I really wanted to put Chase Calicut, and he and the family were tweeting all weekend talking about how like gracious and hospitable and all of this stuff. I still think he ends up down south. I still think he ends up at Texas and all of that. Could be wrong. We'll wait to see kind of what if more kind of transpires, but I don't have him in the class. I do have Jordan Deck. I haven't talked to him since he visited. So I do have him in the class. That's kind of just based off of reading some of the tea leaves out there on the recruiting sites. And then my other safety. See, now I do have to go to this because I know I had. You know what? I think I had a 1 safety and 3 corners. Is that what I did? See, I don't even remember. That is what I did. All right, so Brody Jennings is already committed. And then I went with Andre Clark, who, again, was another one that got all kinds of predictions coming out of the weekend. And then for my last cornerback, I went with Kari Adams, who seems like he's between Michigan and Penn State. I know that's still going to be a tough pull, but I think that Michigan will end up winning that one out. Now, wouldn't be surprised if there's some NIL curveballs out there. Again, like we've already talked about some of these guys, could Devon Benjamin, who visited a couple weeks ago, the 5-star safety, could someone like him end up? I think absolutely. I think one of those things that now you have to understand is all bets are off. We were doing these best guess lists last summer. I felt probably about the same, like pretty good. A couple, I think they're going to swing for the fences and get this guy and whatever. I'd have to look back and see how many of those that Michigan ended up with. I know I had Babalola on some of the earlier lists. But like no one was talking about Ty Haywood. No one was talking about, I mean, we were talking about Nate Marshall, but by the time I started it, he was already flipped over to Auburn pretty much. Obviously no one was talking about Bryce Underwood. If anything, we were talking about Bryce Underwood for the wrong reasons. I'm going on Crane and Company and talking, saying some not great things about Michigan. So with all of that, I'd say, like, don't be surprised if, like, this looks a heck of a lot different come December, but that's the fun of the thought exercise. But when you hear a lot of those names, especially if you follow recruiting relatively closely, then you can kind of understand why I was saying before, do not, like, get all up in arms about what, when the class had 7 commitments and going into June. And everyone's like, what is wrong with Michigan? There's everything going backwards. Like, this is just what they do every year. And now, because what we saw last year with like some of the late ads and some of those things, I say like it could be just as good, even better. We just got to wait and see. So patience is key when it comes to recruiting, especially if you're talking about Michigan football. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We will be back probably on Wednesday. At some point, we're going to get to those All-American lists that I created. I was kind of saving those for a little bit of a rainy day. But if we can talk news, we will talk news. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.